Most people believe they're broke because they don't earn enough money. This belief is wrong, and it's a mistake that destroys financial futures every single day. For decades, I've watched people who earn extraordinary incomes make the same devastating errors. These aren't reckless spenders. Many understand compound interest better than most. They read the right books, take notes, and nod along when experts explain wealth-building principles. Then they go home and continue bleeding money without realizing where the wound is located. Today, we're examining something far more important than increasing your income. We're going to identify 3 hidden drains that are quietly destroying your financial foundation right now, whether you see them or not. These aren't obvious expenses on your bank statement. They operate beneath conscious awareness, quietly extracting wealth while you wonder why you can't build momentum no matter how hard you work. Think about a machine designed to convert fuel into productive work. In any real machine, not all energy produces results. Some dissipates through friction and heat. In a poorly designed system, these losses can be enormous. You can pour in fuel constantly, but because energy is leaking out, the output never matches the input. This is what's happening in your financial life. You're working, earning, sometimes even saving, but the system is leaking. Until you identify exactly where those leaks are and seal them, every dollar you earn is fighting a losing battle. The difference between someone who builds lasting wealth and someone who just earns money isn't intelligence or talent. The real difference is understanding one principle. Eliminating drains is more powerful than adding income. If you double your income but spending expands to match, you end up in the same place. But if you seal the leaks, even a modest income begins to accumulate and create its own momentum. I've said for years that the first rule of building wealth is never lose money. The second rule is never forget the first rule. Most people think this applies only to investments. It doesn't. It applies to your daily life and the 3 drains we're about to examine. If you stop losing money in these 3 specific ways, you won't need genius-level intelligence or the next breakthrough opportunity. You'll simply need patience, because a system that stops leaking will always eventually fill up. Understanding identity expenses. Most people categorize spending into 2 buckets: needs and wants. Rent is a need. A new television is a want. They believe that if they resist enough wants and cover their needs, they'll accumulate wealth. This framework misses the most dangerous category entirely. The most financially destructive expenses are identity expenses. You spend not because you genuinely need or want something, but because of who you believe you are, who you think you need to appear to be, or who you're terrified of appearing not to be. Identity expenses are protected by the ego. When you try to cut a food expense, hunger passes and logic wins. When you try to cut an identity expense, your entire sense of self protests. Your perceived social standing protests. Your fear of judgment and irrelevance rise up to defend that expense. This is why intelligent people who understand financial principles still can't change behavior. They're not fighting a logic problem. They're fighting a biology problem. The 3 drains are all forms of identity expenses, each defended by powerful psychological systems. Drain 1. The status machine. In the late 1950s, I observed the men around me who seemed successful and compared them to ones actually building real wealth. The people building genuine wealth were almost invisible. You couldn't tell they had money by looking at them. They drove unremarkable cars, wore ordinary clothes, and didn't discuss their investments. They were quiet, unassuming people with extraordinary balance sheets. The people who looked wealthy were drowning. The expensive suits, new cars, club memberships. Every visible signal of success was purchased at the price of actual success. They were burning fuel before it could do useful work. Human beings evolved in small groups where social position wasn't just about ego, it was about survival. High-status individuals had better access to food, shelter, and protection. Low-status individuals were vulnerable. Your brain doesn't know the calendar has changed. The ancient machinery is still running, constantly calculating. Am I high enough in the social order? Do people recognize my value? Am I safe? Modern commerce has learned to hijack this machinery. Corporations invest billions studying how to activate these ancient fears. They don't sell you a car, they sell you a signal. They don't sell you a watch, they sell you a statement about your position in the hierarchy. When you see someone you know driving a newer, more expensive vehicle, your brain doesn't process this as neutral information. It registers it as a threat, as evidence you might be falling behind. The response isn't logical analysis. It's a powerful emotional urge to close the gap. This is the status machine, and it's operating in your mind right now, constantly, whether you're aware of it or not. Here's what this costs in concrete terms. The average person spends between 15 and 25% of their after-tax income on status signaling. Not obvious extravagance, the quiet, embedded premium they pay for the status-enhanced version of nearly everything. The car 3 levels above what reliable transportation requires. The apartment in the expensive neighborhood that stretches the budget because of the address. The clothes that communicate a certain aesthetic. The restaurants that suggest a particular lifestyle. Each individual purchase seems reasonable, but the aggregate is staggering. Let's say you're spending an extra $800 monthly on status signaling, roughly $10,000 annually, above what genuine function requires. If instead you invested that $10,000 at a 10% return over 30 years, you would accumulate approximately $1.8 million. $1.8 million. Not from earning more. Not from finding better investments. Simply from turning off the status machine. The status machine doesn't just cost you the money you spend today, it costs you the compounded future value of everything you spend. Every dollar flowing through the machine is a dollar that will never compound, never become $10, never form the foundation of something substantial. Wealthy people understand this. This is why some of the wealthiest individuals live in homes they purchased decades ago and drive the same car for years. This isn't eccentricity or stinginess. This is understanding that the status machine is a trap. The exit from that trap is the willingness to appear ordinary. Ordinary isn't failure. Ordinary is camouflage. The quiet, invisible accumulation of real power, while others burn resources signaling false power. The question isn't whether you can afford the status machine. The question is what you're sacrificing to run it. The diagnostic exercise. The next time you consider a significant purchase, ask yourself one question and answer honestly. Am I buying this for what it does, or am I buying it for what it says? If your car gets you reliably from place to place, that's function. If you're spending an additional $20,000 for a badge that announces you've arrived, that's the status machine. Be honest. The status machine is woven into almost every major purchase decision you make. You've been making these decisions on autopilot for so long, they feel like conscious choices. They're not choices anymore. They're reflexes. And reflexes don't belong to you. They belong to the machine. Disconnect from the machine. Let capital accumulate. Let compounding do its work. You don't need external validation to know you're winning. You just need to actually win. Drain 2. The convenience tax. In 1986, a Nobel Prize was awarded for economic research most people have never heard of. Among the contributions was a concept called the full price of a good. When you pay for something, you don't only pay the price on the tag. You pay the full price, which includes the time you spent earning the money, the time you spend thinking about it, and the time managing the consequences of owning it. Most people only see the number on the price tag. This is the convenience tax. Unlike the status machine, driven by ego and social hierarchy, the convenience tax is driven by the systematic undervaluation of the future. Every human brain has a built-in mechanism that makes future rewards feel less valuable than immediate rewards. You'd rather have $50 today than $60 next month, even though waiting 1 month for a 20% return would be extraordinary by any rational standard. When survival was uncertain, taking resources immediately made sense. But in the modern world, this mechanism is constantly exploited to extract wealth from your pocket. The convenience economy operates on one principle: charge people more to have things immediately, easily, without effort. And because the brain assigns a premium to the present over the future, people pay this premium almost reflexively. The most obvious layer is financial products: payday loans, rent-to-own arrangements, installment plans, credit card balances carried month after month. All these products sell one thing: the convenience of having something now that you haven't yet earned. The price of this convenience is catastrophic. A credit card charging 22% interest is a mathematical mechanism for transferring wealth from people who undervalue the future to institutions that understand time perfectly. If you carry a $5,000 balance on a credit card for 10 years, you'll pay thousands in interest, sometimes paying twice or 3 times for the same purchase. You're taxing your future self to satisfy your present self. But the more insidious layers are the ones that disguise themselves as small. Consider subscription services, all of them. The streaming platforms you no longer watch. The gym membership you stopped using last February. The software subscription you forgot to cancel. The cloud storage plan you don't understand. The premium tier you upgraded to and never downgraded from. These aren't large numbers individually. That's the entire point. They're designed to be invisible, priced below the threshold of concern. They occupy no mental space. They make no sound. They simply extract. But the total of invisible extraction isn't invisible. It shows up at month's end as the gap between what you earned and what remains. The inexplicable shortfall. The quiet bewilderment of the person making reasonable income who somehow can't accumulate anything. That's the convenience tax, paid in fragments, collected in totality. A second dimension. The convenience tax isn't only paid through premium prices for instant gratification. It's also paid through abdicated decisions. When you outsource financial life management to someone else's defaults, you pay the convenience tax. The retirement contribution level set at enrollment and never adjusted. The insurance plan selected because it was default. The bank account you've had since college with fees and interest rates from a different era. None of these decisions are catastrophically wrong in isolation, but none were made by someone paying full attention. They were made by someone tired, busy, or simply unaware that paying attention here could be worth thousands annually. The convenience tax charges you for not paying attention. And tragically, the less money you have, the more convenience purchases you tend to make. Because the cognitive bandwidth required to resist convenience is exactly the resource that financial stress erodes. This creates a cycle. Low resources generate high mental load. High mental load generates low resistance to convenience purchases. Convenience purchases drain resources. Drained resources generate higher mental load. Round and round it spins. So how do you break it? You don't break it through willpower alone. Willpower depletes like a battery. If your financial structure requires constant willpower to maintain, the structure will fail. You break it by changing the architecture. Audit every recurring charge in your life. Not once a year, once a month, until you've eliminated every charge that isn't delivering proportional, conscious, deliberate value. Destroy default settings. Look at every financial arrangement you've drifted into passively and ask, if I were choosing this today with full information, would I choose it? If the answer is anything less than an enthusiastic yes, the answer is no. Build friction into convenience pathways. Subscription services designed to be easy to forget are also designed to be difficult to cancel. You must build counter-friction. Make it harder to spend than not to spend. Automate the future and make the present manual. Most people do the opposite. They automate present consumption while making savings transfers something they have to remember. Reverse this. Automate savings and investment contributions. Make them invisible, untouchable, non-negotiable before money reaches your spending account. Then let the present be what it needs to be with what remains. This isn't sacrifice. This is architecture designing a system that works in your favor instead of against you. Every dollar that escapes the convenience tax gets to compound, to roll forward, to become part of the accumulation that eventually grows large enough to generate its own momentum. Drain 3. The education illusion. This is the hardest drain to describe because it's disguised as virtue. The first two drains are recognizably self-serving. You can at least apply skepticism to those motivations. The third drain is different. It flatters your belief that you're being responsible. It arrives wearing the uniform of self-improvement courses enrolled in, degrees pursued, certifications earned, seminars attended, books purchased, coaching programs joined. Let me be precise. Education is not the enemy. I've spent my life reading extensively. I believe investing in your own capability is among the most valuable things you can do. I'm not discouraging learning. What I'm describing is a pattern I've observed with deep concern for decades, a pattern that accelerates during times of economic anxiety, a pattern that relieves the discomfort of financial stagnation without addressing its causes. The pattern works like this. A person feels stuck. They feel like they're not earning enough, not advancing fast enough. This discomfort is real and valid. But instead of sitting with that discomfort and doing the difficult, often unglamorous work of closing the gap, they purchase an education product, a course, a program, a certification. In the moment of purchase, something powerful happens. The anxiety temporarily dissolves because they're now doing something. The purchase itself feels like progress. But here's the brutal reality. Knowledge that isn't converted into action has a financial value of zero, not near zero. Exactly zero. If you fill a room with the most valuable books ever written and never open them, they're worthless. If you complete every online course ever created but never change a single behavior, you're left with a smaller bank account and a larger collection of certificates. The education illusion is the comfort of feeling like you're building the bridge without the discomfort of actually laying the stones. There's a phenomenon in psychology called preparatory behavior. The human tendency to confuse preparation with action. When you're preparing to do something difficult, your brain registers this as progress. It releases mild positive neurochemicals. It reduces anxiety. It creates the sensation of forward movement. In moderate amounts, preparatory behavior is useful. Planning before execution reduces errors. But in excess, preparatory behavior becomes a substitute for the thing it's supposedly preparing for. The preparation becomes the activity. The course becomes the career. The planning becomes the business. I've watched people spend years learning about investing without making a single investment. I've watched people take course after course on entrepreneurship without starting a single business. I've watched people accumulate credentials at enormous cost and arrive at 60 with an impressive collection of certificates and the same financial anxiety they had at 30. The education industry understands this pattern. Because the person who finishes a course without executing doesn't conclude the course failed them. They conclude they must need more education. And they purchase the next course and the next one. There are genuinely excellent educators and transformative learning experiences. What I'm asking you to do is measure the return. For every educational investment you've made in the last 5 years, ask, did this change what I do, or did it only change what I know? If it changed what you do, if it led to a specific measurable shift in your behavior, earning capacity, or investment decisions, then it was a legitimate investment. If it only changed what you know, if you're more informed but not more effective, then it was, financially speaking, a consumption item. It felt like investment, but functioned like spending. The education illusion has a specific demographic vulnerability. It's most dangerous for people who most want to do the right thing, the conscientious, the ambitious, the self-aware. Because these people feel the responsibility to prepare thoroughly before acting. They want to know enough before they risk. They want to be ready. But readiness is a moving threshold. There's always more to learn. And the requirement for readiness, if you let it, will always stay one step ahead of wherever you actually are. At some point, you must stop preparing and start doing. At some point, the cost of waiting to be ready exceeds the cost of making mistakes. I didn't wait until I understood everything before making my first investment. I made investments with incomplete information, and I learned from the investments themselves in ways I could never have learned from study alone. This isn't an argument for recklessness. I'm suggesting that your area of competence expands through action, not only through study. And if you're spending significant resources on education without a proportional commitment to execution, you're paying the education tax. The solution. Every time you're about to purchase an educational product, ask, what specific action will I take as a direct result of this learning? And when exactly will I take it? If you can't answer that question concretely, don't buy the course. If you can answer it but realize you could take the action right now with your current knowledge, don't buy the course. Take the action now. Education should arrive in service of action, not as a substitute for it. I've described 3 specific drains that can be identified, measured, and corrected. But underneath the mechanics, there's a deeper issue about identity. The 3 drains persist not just because they're pleasant or habitual, but because they're connected to how you understand yourself. You spend on status because somewhere underneath everything, you believe the signal you send is who you are. You pay the convenience tax because somewhere you believe the discomfort of resisting it reflects something about your worth. You buy education without acting because somewhere you believe that not being fully ready is a legitimate reason to wait. These are stories. They're not facts, but they feel like facts. The work of financial transformation isn't primarily about spreadsheets and budgets. It's work on identity. It's the slow, patient, often uncomfortable process of building a new story, where your value isn't performed for others, where the future is more real than the present, where being ready enough is actually enough. I've lived in the same house for decades. Not because I couldn't afford a larger one, because the house was never the point. The point was always the accumulation. The point was always the compound growth over time. Find your capital, find your time horizon, seal the drains, and then simply don't stop building. That's the entire principle. Stop losing. Start compounding. Don't stop. The results will arrive gradually and then all at once. They'll arrive in the form of choices you didn't previously have, conversations you can walk away from, mornings that feel different. You won't need to announce them. The people who understand will simply recognize a different kind of person standing where you used to stand. And the people who don't understand will probably say, "You got lucky." Let them say that. Because this kind of outcome is what happens when you eliminate the status machine and the convenience tax, when you stop buying preparation instead of taking action, and then you wait long enough for compounding to do its work. That kind of result is available to anyone, including you, starting right now.